Hello and welcome to the first of videos in a series called The First Experience. In this series, we'll take some people that have been involved with FIRST Robotics and sit them down and have a talk with them about their experiences. For the first episode, we're joined by John Dunbar, a Technicbots 8565 alumnus going into freshman year at the University of Texas at Austin. Now, if you don't know who FDC Team 8565 Technicbots is, prepare to be amazed. Comprised of high schoolers and middle schoolers, this local team from Plano, Texas did incredible for the last 2 seasons, going to First Global 2 years in a row. In the last season, they boasted the Finalist Alliance Award and the Inspire Award, which is the most prestigious award at Worlds. Our team, 18227 Area 52, interviewed them to motivate people to get involved in FIRST by talking to some of the best who just completed their journey and share their incredible experiences doing FTC. Be prepared for more videos in the future to see how the young generation is changing the world through robotics. Enjoy the video. Hello, John. It's nice to meet you. Just briefly describe yourself for me.
I was one of the core builders on the 8565 team and built the robot, and we went to World and competed there. And now I'm going on to the University of UT Austin.
Wow. And outside of FTC, what do you like to do?
Outside of FTC, I like to kind of just mess around with computers, and I also like going skiing and stuff.
And you've competed at Olympiad competitions as well, is that correct?
Yeah,
Okay. So when you joined FTC, how many years have you been involved in FIRST?
I joined a middle school robotics team, like FTC team, and that was like my first experience with FIRST. For that, I would say I kind of enjoyed playing with Legos and stuff. That's like in elementary and middle school, but I was never part of like a serious robotics like, team until then. That started.
Okay. In the best way you can, try to describe yourself when you joined FIRST for the first time.
Kind of didn't know what I was going into, but just like heard the word robots, and that sounded pretty cool, so I tried it.
Well, there you go, and here you are today. So you joined FIRST. So were you immediately like fully into it? You were super passionate about robotics and you kept doing it as soon as you joined, or did that come after some time?
I would say it came after like a few months into the like building our robot when I became more involved and like started participating more and like became like started caring more about how our robot did.
Right. And did you, when in your first year with the middle school FTC team, did you win any of the robot awards?
Not really, but we did improve a lot and we actually made it to regionals, and
Not.
that's kind of our biggest achievement.
Okay. Yeah. Regionals is really good. So you join FTC, you start to get into it, and then when do you join Technicbots?
I joined Technicbots in 10th grade because I wanted to continue with the FTC program, and there it was a lot more involved and there was a lot more like stuff going on, a lot of interesting stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And then in ninth grade, were you in an FTC team? Because ninth grade you were in high school.
Yeah, in 9th grade, I didn't join an FTC team. I kind of missed the sign up deadline, I guess.
Okay, that's okay. That happened to me once too. But you joined Technicbots. So do you think we were pretty shocked at like the culture there when you first joined, or did you kind of like, okay, yeah, this is how I'm gonna go. I'm just gonna keep going at it.
Uh, I'll say it is like a shock to be in the team with the robot that like oh I see all these cool robots at the super high level, and now I'm here with the robot like in front of me on the field, and that was like a pretty cool experience at first.
Yeah, for sure. Um, when I did FDC, I was with the middle school team last year as well. And when I joined, like a really good team with a good robot that did really well at regionals, I can agree that it's very. You join there, and it's like a different experience because you're there, and the robots that you typically see that are like on the field, and you're never gonna be that robot, and now you're just right there within reach. So yeah, I can totally understand what you're saying. So when you did first, your first, oh, I keep saying first and first, no pun intended, but your first competition with Technicbots, how did that go for you? Because I'd imagine that it would be different than from your middle school team.
We were a lot more competitive than I expected, and it was a lot more like involved, a lot more things going on, like a lot more, I guess, busy. Although it wasn't too much of a surprise because we as a team do a lot of like scrimmages. We knew like how our robot was going to be before the match.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think is your most memorable moment when you did FTC with Technicbots?
I think my most memorable moment would be before we left to Worlds. Because before we left, our robot arm kind of broke, like completely. So we needed to design like a counterbalancing system to like spring load it so there's not so much load on it. And I remember I spent like the entire weekend and like the days surrounding that, like just completely only doing like robotic stuff. Just thinking about a lot of like math stuff for calculating everything. A lot of the math I didn't really understand, and I had to like figure it out in order to counterbalance it. It was just that moment when I was like completely involved in robotics, and like the world championship is like just in like 3 days or something, and I kind of like devoted my entire self to that, and like everything else can be postponed to after.
Yeah, and it looks like it paid off since you guys
Yeah.
pretty much won the entire thing. And that brings me to First Global. So you can just kind of briefly describe First Global to people watching that don't exactly know what it is.
Okay, so first global is like an international style competition. It's more like Olympic style. So each country has one team, and because not all countries like the United States has a pretty big robotics culture, I guess. However, other countries don't really have any robotics teams. So there's a standardized kit that they like send out to every country, and every country uses that kit to try to build a robot similar to the FTC game. The differences I would say are that the first global challenge is more of a time crunch kind of thing, whereas FTC have more time to like iterate and like try advanced designs.
And so your role in First Global was a builder, right?
Yeah.
And so, well, you guys went to First Global last year, and now you're going to First Global again this year. So 2 years in a row, that's pretty good. Last time you did First Global, when you did First Global, what was the most memorable moment? Because last season I talked to Anthony, and he told me a lot of cool stuff about First Global about last season. So what do you think was your most memorable?
My most memorable moment of the first global, well, that year it was all virtual, so we had a very different challenge than what's typically a first global. One of the parts was launching a prototype CubeSat into the atmosphere.
Anthony was telling me about
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
And I think my most memorable moment was when we were there and we're launching it and like just seeing it go up.
Yeah. And that's in some random person's backyard now, isn't it?
Probably.
Yeah, there you go. Whoever has found that, I mean, good for them. Yeah. So you did First Global, and when you were doing FTC, obviously you had a bunch of challenges. So would you say your biggest challenge was also that time where you were on a huge time crunch before Worlds?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're now going to UT, and you're doing a comp sci major, but you've done building in FTC. What made you transition from like this engineering standpoint to a computer science standpoint?
From what I've heard of people in the industry, computer science, like especially in the job aspect, maybe not in the academic aspect, is mainly just like software engineering. You're designing systems, and you're designing systems with computers, but the same designing systems with like mechanical physical things is seems like pretty much the same thing, basically.
Yeah, for sure. I can understand how computer science and engineering tie pretty closely together.
Yeah.
So talk about your most impactful season.
I'd say probably the season that like changed me the most would actually be the off season between the Skystone year and the Ultimate Goal. I feel like that's when I kind of crossed a threshold in my CAD skills where designing a robot in CAD became transitioned from just being a tool to make 3D printed parts to actually being more effective than designing with commercial parts. And that really changed up how I thought about robots and how I designed them.
And so that was the summer in 2019.
I believe so.
Okay, yeah. I'm assuming you became a lot better. So did you join Technicbots in Skystone year?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, you clearly became a lot more proficient, and then now you're youth mentor for Technicbots as well as a core builder. So when you did FTC, do you think you're going to join the alumni program for FTC, or are you not going to stay away from that?
I'll probably join the alumni network and like kind of participate a little bit. Probably more out of college when I'm done with all that. So I'll think about that when it comes to that.
Nice. Okay, and personality-wise, how would you describe yourself way before you joined FTC or First?
I would say I was pretty impatient and like I probably talked a lot. I was probably annoying.
Okay, and so you did First. Did you find your personality changing a lot? And would you attribute that to FTC?
I would say in first, I definitely grew a lot in like conflict mediation and like collaborating with people. And I feel like that has spread to my everyday life and also in like perseverance to like encounter failures over and over again and still keep on going to like pursue the goal and stuff.
Right. So you could say that you've really once you go at something, you never give up. You will just go hammer at it until it's done.
Well, if it's something that's worth being done.
And there
Yeah.
you go. Okay.
Yeah, I would say the effort we put in, we have to like carefully consider to make sure we're not biting off more than we can chew and like this thing is implementable in like a reasonable amount of effort. But I would say the effort we consider is more about like time. Because if you try to pursue a really difficult design, maybe it would mean like spending your entire day working on it. But usually it means like spending more time working on it because the time we spend working on robotics is kind of fixed because we still have school, we still have homework, and we still have like all our other extracurriculars.
And speaking of school and extracurriculars, balancing FTC with an extremely good team, with your extracurriculars, with your school, that can be challenging. So how did you deal with that?
Definitely had some times where balancing them became difficult. One thing that I do is like always trying to like get efficiency wherever I can, being able to CAD faster. Like, sometimes I would go like do research on like how to CAD better, and that like improves my skills, and then I can do it in less time. And then also schooling, like I would say you also like improve and get better at like your efficiency there. Really, I think like senior year, I just had like 5 AP classes, and I was spending like maybe an average of like 2 hours on schoolwork and spending a lot of other time on like extracurriculars.
So what extracurriculars did you decide to pursue throughout high school?
Well, my main extracurricular was robotics, although I did pursue a lot into competitive programming and then also into, I would say, I guess, Linux and stuff.
Nice. Okay, so this might be a little bit of a tangent, but well, what distro of Linux do you use?
I use OpenBSD.
Nice. Okay. You briefly touched upon the community aspects, which was essentially you became better at resolving conflicts and also working with the team. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that? Did you work as a team prior to FTC at a competitive level, and how do you think you got better than that, and what does that mean exactly?
For FCC, I mean, I was on like sports teams, but the amount of collaboration in a sports team is very different from the collaboration in like an FTC team.
So a lot of people try to put a comparison between playing for a soccer team or a basketball team or a football team or whatever and participating in a robotics team. Do you agree with this general like do you agree with that comparison, or do you think it's very, very different things?
I would say they're pretty different things. Like especially there's a lot more decision making that goes into a robot because you can't like just change your decision. Like you can't just change the robot on the fly. You have to like make a decision and then like it takes a couple of weeks to like build the robot and then you see like how well it did. So all the decisions are more important. They're more involved and they're you could say more heated in some cases. I'd say it's a lot more like on your own work where people are like studying things or like working on a bit of code or like working on a model or something. As with sports teams, it's more like a lot more practice and say in robotics there's a lot more like creativity too. Because in an FTC team, like people really care about the robot. They really care about the different designs and which one like the pros and cons of each. And I think one of the barriers I faced when I started FTC, I would say, is the difference between resolving a conflict between two people and then just talking until one person gives up. And that was a problem. I think that was pretty prevalent in my middle school FTC team. And it was something that like we struggled to solve really. I think that's kind of a way of conflict resolution that's like kind of natural, I would say, or like kind of comes up when people are not really experiencing it and people aren't like especially trying to like aren't going out of their way to understand what the other people are feeling and what they're thinking. It's like people keep arguing saying like this is more important or oh this thing is other more important or like this won't happen or something. And then and just keep them going until one person like gives up, who's tired of talking to them. And then sometimes you may feel that you have won the argument when the other person gives up, but you haven't actually won, and more importantly, you haven't figured out what's the best decision for the team, and that can like really hinder your progress.
That you're going to take away this into any job that you do, because you have to work with people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So how would you so with Technicbots, what skills did you get, and how would you say your conflict resolution skills have changed?
I would say with Technicbots, there was a lot more like online communication, a lot more like coordination aspect to that. I feel like the collaboration, I'm not sure if it was like I was more experienced in it or probably the other people were more experienced too. And that kind of made it easier. There's like, it was more natural to collaborate with the focus on like kind of seeing things from like, I guess, as little bias as possible perspective, and then deciding what's the best for a robot. There was also more conflict or like more problem that arises from like coordination of like making like seeing like who can get what stuff done, or like have you finished this, or like do you need someone to help you kind of thing. We need like multiple people to work on that so it can go faster, because perhaps like I'm working on this part and like someone else might be working on a different part, but they depend on me to finish before they can finish, and it's more like that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about a night during the World's Championship where your robot. What happened with it?
Well, throughout the entire world championship, we are having issues with our autonomous, something like we spent like a whole ton of hours trying to figure it out. Our camera was kind of causing the robot to crash every once in a while, which is really not good. And then also, because we're all like here like only for the robot and not for anything else, we're always trying to like figure out how can we make the robot slightly better at all times, basically. So there was one night where I think it was getting pretty close to the elimination rounds, actually, and we were like fixing things on the robot. However, there was a lot of work to be done, and I remember we actually scheduled it so the builders would go and work on the robot for it now for like a couple of hours, kind of late into the night, and then our programmers, they like went to bed and they woke up like kind of like in the middle of the night to go work on the robot and like program it after the builders had finished.
How late in the night are we talking?
It was about like 3 a.m. where we switched.
3 a.m. Okay. So you guys just became nocturnal for a couple of days.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. So how did you resolve this problem at the end and the iterations that you went through to do this? Can you just kind of describe that? Because I can imagine there's not just a bunch of, okay, this is just your normal fixing of the robot. No, this is first World Championships. There's a lot on the line here. A lot of emotions must be going through everybody's minds. It must be pretty difficult to just function normally under that, right?
I would say I was very into it. I would say I felt like I was probably functioning normally. I wasn't like I'm not the kind of person who gets like really stressed usually. Although there was a lot of work to do, a lot of late nights. Like even though there was a lot of that, there was also like coffee in the morning.
Okay. So then it's all good.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay. And then for your talk about the iterations and how you went and solved this problem, because your autonomous breaking down every once in a while is it's not good.
I'm not really sure like what exactly it was, because there was probably like a host of issues. I remember it was actually a really difficult problem. Like I think it was one of the volunteers, like one of the, maybe like a technical advisor or something. They came over and helped us, which was really nice of them to like prevent our robot from like breaking, because it's not really that much of it's not a very interesting competition if a robot like doesn't move at all during a game, right? And we spent like maybe like 5 hours with them during the day, and like the problem was still not fixed. It was something to do with like the camera, because we had 3 cameras on the robot, and I think just leaving them on for such a long time, especially like when you turn on the robot to where they like introduce everything and like start the countdown to when you start the robot. There's something happening between then that was causing the robot to crash, but like didn't happen like when we tested it at our playing field. So that made the bug really hard to like kind of weed it out.
Yeah, no, that makes that. Yeah, it can be pretty difficult to do. So now that you're pretty much here, you finished first, or at least you finished their main course, if you will. You've had their desert with First Global, And now when you look back and you look at where you were when you started doing first, and you look at other people that were probably like you and they did not start first, what would you say is the reason why people like that should actually go into first? How would you say it is beneficial to your life, not just in, okay, I learned CAD, or I learned how to build using Rev parts or Go Build or whatever have you. Really, that you can take away from this, where you can go no matter what you do.
I would say one of the biggest things about first, which is why I would recommend it to people who are not in it already, is that the problems you solved have not been solved before. Like building a robot to complete the game there's not an answer already. Like with math class, they give you a question and like the answer is something that you learned maybe like a week ago. And you just have to remember which one it is. But with robotics, and especially like this kind of competitive robotics team, the answer is something that you come up with, and it's could be anything really. And it's that kind of thinking, which is like so different from regular schooling, and I feel like it's so important in like a education standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. So anybody who's watching right now from their homes or wherever, you should just join FTC if you haven't already. There are a lot of people here who are watching that are in first, but there are a lot of people here who are also not in first. And I think that I've gone through the first program. You've gone through the first program. I think we can agree that first is a good program. Like it's just it changed me, and it's probably changed you as well. So you go to first world championship, and you had just a bunch of pretty your nocturnal nights, if you will. Very little sleep, maybe a lot of stress for some team members. Clearly not you, but it's building up to that moment, the award ceremony, and when you hear your team number being called for the Inspire Award winning the Inspire Award, which is like winning the entire tournament, basically there has to be a flood of emotions going through you. Just like describe to me that moment in words if you can.
Okay, so during the award ceremony, what I didn't know about World is that since there's so many teams, they only announce each team once for like the highest award they won. So during the entire award ceremony, they never mentioned our name ever. And I was feeling like pretty bummed out about it. And then when they started announcing the Inspire Award, it was like so much surprise. I kind of like felt it in my gut, like oh my god, kind of moment.
So it's like a roller coaster because you don't hear your name being called or the team number being called like at all, and then it just Inspire Award winner, you're just the winner of Worlds. I can imagine how incredible that moment must be, and you really never get to live that twice. You won Worlds, or sorry, yeah, you won Worlds, you represented Team USA. And the season before that, you also represented Team USA. You're going to first global 2 years in a row. And when you found out that you were going to be the representative of the United States, you probably knew as soon as you won Inspire Award, right, at Worlds?
Yeah, because the representative of the United States is always the Inspire Award winner from the FTC. Sometimes when there's two worlds, they alternate between like the southern U.S. worlds and the northern U.S. worlds. But since there's only one worlds this year, we like kind of already knew. Oh, ultimate goal. There wasn't a Worlds that year because of COVID.
Oh, right.
But there was the Texas Cup. We were the finalist alliance captain at the Texas Cup, and we were also, I think, third place Inspire, which was pretty good, I'd say. And then that year we got selected to be the Team USA just because like there was no Worlds, so they like not sure how they chose it, but it was kind of more like I'd say more like a challenge than like an award kind of thing. Like, oh, we're like being asked to be the Team USA, and it's like a challenge, and we're going to go like step up to it, try to do really well at it.
And then I definitely was not an expectation to represent the United States of America 2 years in a row, and maybe 3 years in a row. We'll see next season. It said Switzerland, right? So
yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of travel fees for y'all, everybody except for Team Switzerland. Yeah. Well, thank you for joining me here today. If you could give one piece of advice to everybody watching, regardless of whether they participate in first, regardless of whether they do robotics, regardless of and anything, what would you say is one important tip that they should keep in mind with everything that they do?
I would say that really should like do things that like do project based kind of learning kind of thing, and also get into something that you believe is fun. I think kind of the fun aspect of it is kind of the most important because that will keep you like motivated, like a kind of thing that you're willing to stay up doing, or occasionally like do like work on something instead of working on your homework or something. And that doesn't mean like play video games or watch movies or something. Of course, I mean like something that is like both like very involved, very like where you're actually learning from it, and then also there has a fun aspect to it, and kind of the combination of that is really important.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me here today. This is John from 8565 Technicbots, going to UT at a comp sci major. So you're very good and you're going to do great things in life, no doubt. And thank you for joining me here today. I hope you have the great rest of your day. And to the viewers, leave down a comment. What would you like to see us do next? An interview with another team or another people that you know who are alumni that you think would be really good for this. Go ahead and leave us some feedback down below. Have a great rest of your day as well.
Thank you for having
Thank
me.
you.